Today, we have Martin Linlove, who is an approved and certified trainer for the MHS EQ1 2.0 and EQ 360 instruments. Martin is going to delve into how the stressors impacting employees have increased with COVID. So I'll turn it over to Martin.
Hello, everybody. I'm the founder of Lift the Vibe, an EQ assessment training and life path coaching company. Firstly, I wanted to thank you all for the great service during the past few difficult years. I really appreciate what you're doing as a group, and I think you deserve a lot of credit. So I've been working with emotional intelligence now for over 36 years. I'm an approved and certified trainer for the EQI 2.0 and the EQ 360 instruments for emotional intelligence assessments and training. At the same time, I was the director of sales and marketing for the Edmonton Convention Center and a number of other hotels, resorts, and colleges. And today, I wanted to talk to you about emotional intelligence and how it's used in their workplace. And is it just hype, or does it really have value? And what we're going to cover today is what is emotional intelligence, the mechanics behind emotional intelligence through this particular model, how EQ assessments provide an easy path for your own development, how emotional intelligence is used in the workplace, and obviously, because today is a big these times are big for stress, I'm going to talk about how stressors can be best managed. So for most organizations, I found in my corporate world particularly, it's obvious which emotions are acceptable, appropriate, and tolerated. I found that work typically allows for emotions such as happiness and passion, enthusiasm. Emotions like sadness and frustration or fear are basically frowned upon. And most of us have been taught at times to essentially wear an emotional straitjacket at work. We tend to park our emotions outside of the office. We don't feel it's totally safe to have feelings. So we put on a corporate persona and mask and hide a huge part of who we are from others. But most importantly, I think you'll see in this webinar is that we not use the wealth of information that our emotions are telling us about ourselves and our work environment. Today, emotional intelligence skills in this economy, it's been written by the World Economic Forum, has added emotional intelligence as one of the top 10 skills needed for the 2020s. It's going to continue for a great long time now with the type of disruptions we've seen in labor. And you'll also find that emotional and social skills, as well as technological skills, are being on the rise as far as training across all major industries, be it banking, healthcare, manufacturing, retail, all across the board. Now, if you are to look at good leadership, and I'm not just referring to those who manage others, but how we manage ourselves, what is the best manager you've ever worked for? What are some of the characteristics of that person, if you could think of that for just a moment here? Did they have a great deal of technical skills, like they're good with team building and other skill sets that are usually used in the business setting, or is it social skills? It's been proven over and over for the past now 20 years that emotional intelligence is one of the defining characteristics of exceptional and unexceptional leaders, where emotional intelligence behaviors are found. And the technical skills make up 10%, and IQ makes up 10% for basic leadership characteristics. So common characteristics, what are the sorts of things that we find in leaders that, at least leaders certainly I have enjoyed, and they are, let's go through them. They're supportive, they can be very inspiring to us, they listen, understand when we speak to them, or at least try to understand, they have our backs, they trust me in my process, they push me to do my best. They're honest, they follow through with any of their commitments to me, they're consistent, clear in expectations, and include me in decisions. That's a long list. But if you were to gather all the people that, currently report to you or work with you, would you say that you have, I should say, the same qualities, excuse me, would they say that you have these same qualities? So that's the question, and I want you to consider as we proceed, when you look at the various qualities that I'm going to mention that make up emotional intelligence, consider what are your strengths and what areas you might want to develop. So when we look at the emotional intelligence within the corporate work framework, where does it sit? Underpinning your technical skills are your core values and beliefs at the very bottom. And they are what drive your behavior in every aspect of your life on a day-to-day basis. They come from your parents, they come from your culture, life experience. And sitting on top of core values, excuse me, I'm jumping ahead here. Sitting on top of your core values is your emotional intelligence. The emotional intelligence essentially determines your boundaries, right from wrong. It determines your needs. It helps you become more self-aware. It allows for informed decisions and to respond to situations more effectively. And at the top is your technical skills. And in this context, we use the term technical skills to refer to skills of leadership, communication, change management, conflict management, or project management, etc. So your core values, your beliefs, and emotional intelligence will determine the overall impact you have with your technical skills. So the same is true in reverse. Your ability to use either successfully or not your technical skills will affect your emotional intelligence, and then also influence your underlying beliefs. So the important thing to remember is this cycles have a significant impact over time. So there's generally a new thinking that has evolved in the past 20 years. And it is coming, this is sort of replicated through the Fortune magazine I found, said leaders or employees are no longer being defined by their IQs or even their technical skills. It's their emotional intelligence that makes a difference. It's rarely for the lack of smarts or vision. Most unsuccessful people stumble because of one simple fatal shortcoming. The failure is one of emotional intelligence. And this is becoming, it may not be managed well, but it's becoming more of an impact in the marketplace. The massive disruption through COVID, baby boomers retiring, we are in a long-term phase of labor shortage. So we have to manage our staff appropriately if we wish to retain them. And it's just good business. So awareness of emotional intelligence is high in general. The term is being bandied about quite a bit. But the specifics of it are still very new. Most people really don't understand what it is all about. So what is emotional intelligence? Defined by this particular model, emotional intelligence is a set of emotional and social skills that collectively establish how well we perceive and express ourselves, express thoughts, develop and maintain social relationships, cope with challenges, and use emotional information in an effective and a meaningful way. So emotional intelligence is not necessarily about being emotional. It's about how we recognize and use emotional information in our general functioning. So this is the model. This model is the best model for understanding and developing emotional intelligence that I've found in the marketplace, which is why I use it. It's the only scientifically validated trait-based measure of emotional intelligence in the world. It's statistically normed, it's scientifically validated, it has internal consistency and reliability measures. It's based on 25 years of research. It was created in '97 by Multi Health Systems. It measures 5 composite scales self-perception, self-expression, interpersonal relationships, decision-making, stress management. It has 5 composite subscales, these 50, or I should say 15 subscales underneath the main composite scales. And it is being tested by 4,000, or at least your results are used against a norm of 4,000 respondents. In the EQ 360, it's 3,200 raters. In higher education, it's 1,800 respondents. So this system is designed in a sense for development. It's not just assessment. The numbers really don't mean anything. They're a way to show where balance is or isn't. And this system is progressive. It's really quite intuitively intelligent here. If you look at the top, that's the bottom of the scale, if you will. Self-perception is the key model. So if you look at self-perception, it is what makes it self-perception is self-regard, self-actualization, and emotional self-awareness. So, and that there's 3 basic subtraits to every particular composite. Now, self-perception will, in a sense, inform how you express yourself. And how you express yourself will inform your interpersonal relationships, which will then in turn inform your decision-making and your stress management. And how much these are in balance will in turn affect your emotional and social functioning, your well-being, and your performance. So that's the basic idea. And why it's kind of important is that if at the very core, your own self-regard, for instance, self-actualization or emotional self-awareness is not there, is lacking, needs development, then it will show up for sure somewhere in the balance of this wheel. Ultimately, you may find yourself in a great deal of stress. So what the tool does in measuring is essentially determine which specific trait is causing you problems. You're not looking for understanding and working with 15 traits. You're looking for one. Because in any particular point in time in your life, there's going to be something that you want to work on, something that's either you want to build as far as a strength or something you want to develop. So you're looking for one thing in that. And oftentimes we kind of know, but we don't necessarily know what to do with it and what it is exactly and how to provide a language for it and therefore determine exactly how you can then do something about it. So if we look at them in general, I'm going to run through the actual composites and these sub-traits. I want to go through it in this manner because every one of you is going to have something different. And I wanted to give you a better sense of, for instance, what is self-regard? It's one thing, as we know, to talk about emotional intelligence or self-regard, but what are these traits and what do they mean as far as this particular language? So I want you to run through it, and if you bear with me, just note that how large the spectrum is of emotional intelligence is far more than what most who don't understand the traits. It's more than empathy and listening skills that most attribute to emotional intelligence. And so consider any traits that you might want to consider developing or strengths that you might want to improve. So we always want to focus on our strengths generally in life, but we don't want our weaknesses to derail us either. So bear with me as I go through these. So in this first instance, we are looking at self-perception, and self-regard is, in basics, looking at both my good and bad points. It is lack of or having self-confidence or lack thereof. It's being happy with who I am. Self-actualization is I accomplish my goals. I'm self-motivated. I try to make my life as meaningful as I can. I look for ways to improve myself. Emotional self-awareness is I pay attention to how I'm feeling. I understand how emotions of others affect me. I know which emotions affect my performance. Now we move on to self-expression module. Emotional expression is it's hard for me to share my feelings with others or the opposite. It's easy for me to express my feelings. I find it difficult to show people how I feel about them. It's hard for me to smile. Assertiveness is I back down when I know I'm right, or I say no when I need to, or I stand up for what I believe in. Independence as a trait is it's hard for me to make simple decisions on my own. I need reassurance from others. I'm more of a follower than a leader. We look at interpersonal traits. Interpersonal relationships are, it's easy for me to make friends. I am easy to approach. I'm a team player. I'm fun to be with. Empathy is, I am good at understanding the way other people feel. I relate to the emotions of others, and I'm sensitive to the feeling of others. And social responsibility is, I try to make a difference in society. I like helping people. I contribute to my community. Decision making. Problem solving. When I'm really upset, I can't decide what to do. I tend to worry about a problem rather than try to solve it. I avoid dealing with problems. Impulse control. Or I'm sorry, reality testing, is I see situations as they really are. I have a good sense of my strengths and weaknesses. I know when my emotions affect my objectivity. And impulse control is I make rash decisions when I'm emotional, or my impulsiveness creates problems for me, or I tend to react hastily. Now we look at stress management. It's made up of flexibility, which is it's hard for me to compromise, or I feel uneasy with last minute changes, or changes make me uneasy, or I need things to be predictable. Stress tolerance is I am generally optimistic. I see the best in people. I have a positive outlook. And optimism is I am optimistic. I see the best in people. I have a positive outlook. So let's take a minute and take a look at how this system works with any one of these particular traits. Let's take a look at empathy. What is empathy again? It's that I'm good at understanding the way other people feel. I avoid hurting the feelings of others. I'm in touch with other people's emotions. So when we look at empathy, what makes empathy work? It's like a stool. It's the balance. It's not the score. You can have a very high score and have issues with empathy. If you're have too much empathy, for instance, you may not have a good enough boundary. You may be able to, your reality testing may be out of balance. And empathy, to be in balance, has to have a balance of emotional self-awareness, reality testing, and emotional expression. And based on the testing, it will provide accurate measurements for each one of these particular traits. And when the traits go up to about 140, I believe, in terms of point system, the general norm is between 90 and 110. It's 70 would be on the low scale, over 130 is on the high scale. When there's a difference of 10 points between emotional self-awareness and reality testing, then it starts to bring up a flag, which then tells you that there is some imbalance there and you want to look at that, how you work with that particular trait in the workplace. So, yes, I think I covered that. Now, here's the big one, stress tolerance. Stress. I keep calm in difficult situations. I thrive in challenging situations. I handle stress without getting too nervous. I perform well under pressure, and so on. So stress tolerance has a balancing factor of problem-solving ability, flexibility, and interpersonal relationships. And stress, since it's a big topic today, I just wanted to elaborate a bit on some key points. I put together last night a bit of a one-page sheet on how to manage stress. And I have found that the first thing in managing stress is, I would suggest in this particular sheet, I put together a guided meditation. And that is for the reason that you want to, at least if you are under a great deal of stress, find some form of balance so that you can get some perspective. And the second urgent thing you want to do is zero in on where it's coming from. So is it your physical body because of some illness? Is it your relationship with your work? Is your relationship with some other people, work or outside? Your relationship with yourself? Or is it a combination of both? And then you want to, the key factor here about stress in general is you want to be able to share the insights you have found from this first 2 points I mentioned, and then talk to somebody about it, or write it down if you want to not share it with others. Write down your findings. And the reason for this is that a lot of people will not express. The important step in combating feelings of being overwhelmed and powerless, which are associated with in stress, is to regain control by way of expression. And not only gain control, but if you leave things bottled up, they will cause you stress. So whether or not you have solved one single problem, the effect of actually expressing releases the stress. And so if you can start by talking to somebody about what you've established and what you can understand, your stress levels will go down immediately. And then you can start looking at those issues around, be it your physical body, relationship with your work, or others. And most people will not express because they go, what's the point? It's not going to affect any of these problems I have. So, and that's completely untrue. It will affect your own stress level. And so I share that in this particular one-page flyer I will send out to you. And in there is a guided meditation. And as well, I have a bit about the business of thinking and not talking equals TNT. It's a really big issue. And I sort of put a little video together on that as well. So some key points there. The actual reports that come from the assessment after you've taken it are one, the workplace report, and in that you get a total score, as I mentioned earlier, and the balance, or the maximum is about 140, and then your overall score for the total emotional intelligence traits and composite scores are there. But it also then breaks up every composite score and then subscales, subtraits, and it gives you an actual score. And so you're just looking at the differences where there's some striking differences. If we look at here, you can see on this one here, social responsibility is at 119 and empathy is at 105. So you've got a bit of a gap there. And so you want to take a look at that as to how, if that is a particular issue, again, it will be quite obvious to you because you know your own life, you know your issues, and it'll just give you a language and understanding of what is in fact affecting you. So you can be more effective. So you go to subscales. Now, the next report is the leadership report. And the difference here is it focuses on the key traits that make leadership effective, which are authenticity, coaching, insight, and innovation. It goes into every one of the 15 sub-composite scales, but it specifically looks at those, and there's 6 traits that fall under each one of these leadership composites, qualities that are important. And at the bottom, it specifically looks at leadership derailers, things that can really affect your leadership and being able to keep your work. And that is impulse control, stress tolerance, problem solving, and independence. So that's the difference. This report focuses in on leadership qualities. So each report will get into, and particularly in the leadership, each subscale, and it'll just talk about the impact on leadership, the strategies for action. It'll talk about some of the balancing things that are affecting that particular trait, such as self-regard. So, and it also goes into a well-being indicator, which are affected mostly by self-regard, optimism, interpersonal relationships, and self-actualization. So what is it that actually trips up managers and employees? And I've seen this my whole life. I've been in the corporate guy for 30 years. Every year you have to go and get specific training or some training. You go into team management, change management, conflict management, communication skills. Everyone has it. Nothing changes. That's what I found within the scope of the company, generally speaking, or in my personal environment with my managers. So what is it that's causing that to happen? The underlying emotional courage and resilience are missing in becoming effective with these technical skills. So when we get to having an understanding of our scores, what particular traits that we want to develop or strengthen, we just pick 3 strengths and we pick 3 areas for development, and we're looking to choose one essentially, and you may know it instantly. And then you build a plan. And in this plan, you take one subscale for 2 weeks and you do 3 things. You do a macro level thing, a meso level thing, and a micro level thing. And at the macro level, you do it only once for the 2 weeks, such as book a meeting with the CEO, ask for a career path. If that's a large thing for you, it'll all depend on the actual trait. At the meso level, you do 2 times over 2 weeks. So you have 1 conversation per week with team members, if that's an issue for you around assertiveness, for instance. Or then on a micro level, you want to do that multiple times per day. So you're reading an inspirational book or journaling every day, etc. Now, the key factor in all of these particular activities is that they're micro, they're easy. Essentially, you want them to be simple or they will not occur. This is the findings. So for instance, if you had assertiveness issue, you can have assertiveness issues in the sense that it's not strong enough. So you can look at here, for instance, in a meeting or a situation with other people, if you disagree with what is being said, speak up and start by saying, I have a different perspective. That's a micro exercise. If you have too much assertiveness, you're in the meeting, you might want to not say anything and allow others to speak first. That may be a challenge for you because you're just chomping at the bit, so to speak, in your assertiveness. So there's another one here as far as assertiveness. If you're trying to gain assertiveness, reach out to a new contact by phone or in person. You can make that a micro level program. These micro level activities make things happen. They give you confidence. They give you a sense of what you can do and guidance, and will develop the skill. And if you test for assertiveness down the road with the same test, it will accurately measure if you have improved. So what does emotional intelligence affect the most? The relationship with your immediate supervisor is number 1. And number 2 is relationship with your coworkers. That is where EI has the greatest effect, which in turn affects how interested you are in your work itself. and then obviously your relationship overall with the organization. And what do people walk away with when they do the assessments and training is an understanding of the basic construct and language of emotional intelligence. If you can't identify it, you can't change it. Role of EI in where it fits in your workplace, so you have a basic understanding of the appropriateness. The workplace or EQI leadership or 360 reports that are some 21, 22 pages. And they're a good reference point. Understanding strategies to become more effective. Review of the derailers in the leadership report. Concrete action plan. And then everything you essentially need to start becoming more effective. And as I've mentioned, the EQI 2.0 is the only trait-based measure of emotional intelligence in North America. It gives you the language, it gives you understanding, and it measures what it's supposed to measure. It has strong reliability in terms of consistency, and it compares you against 4,000 other people who have taken the test. It's actually designed for development. So the question comes to you, or back to you, what are you striving to become? What has already come to mind that you would like to develop or strengthen? Where can you become more effective? I personally want to live in a world with emotionally strong leaders, where tending to emotions in the workplace is not taboo. I want our leaders to model emotionally strong behaviors that their teams and employees can mirror. And I want to see leaders who can emotionally mentor the next generation of our workforce so that a decade from today, emotionally connected workplaces are not the exception, but the norm. So that ends the questions. If you want to know more about your own particular needs, I do provide a free initial half-hour consultation. One of the bonuses is I'm going to send you this sheet on stress. And I'm also available to present this webinar to others in your organization or anywhere you are if you wish to have it done again. So there we are.
Thank you very much, Martin. That was really great. Does anyone have questions? Kathy, I already see that you're off mute. Did you have a question?
Yeah, Martin, first of all, thank you very much. I've heard other presentations on EQ, and I think every time I hear it, I learn something new, usually about myself. I'm not always my favorite subject, but work with me, they're probably grateful. I'm not sure if I missed it, but I know in the past there's been times I've taken the EQ. So through the website that you had up there, I think it was Lift the Vibe. Is that where we could sign up and possibly take that? Can you just
Right.
I wasn't totally clear on that.
Well, yes, the website provides a bit of information, obviously, about me and what I do as far as services, and then you connect with me to say, hey, let's have a half-hour consultation, because you and I are gonna come to understanding as to what you need and what I can provide, and if there's a match, and if you want to proceed. So so that's generally the process.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And I also have as well in there a number of articles I've done or published and notes. So there's a lot of information there as well if you wish to do it. I even put together, I'm keeping current with the bot world. And it's really quite fascinating, really. It does answer, I've set it up in such a way that it really gets to the core of some basic questions around emotional intelligence. If you want to use that as well, it's on the website.
Thank you, Martin.
Yeah.
I have a question too. And I noticed that Brian has a question in the chat. So and I think it might be the same as Kathy's, but can the self-assessment be completed within a workshop or a seminar, or
yes,
is that a connection with you as well?
That's correct. Yes, it can provide a workshop. The attendees would have to would get access to their assessments in the workshop,
Okay.
and then they would, yes.
Okay. So thank you for that. My question is, do you have any thoughts on, I mean, it's super important to stay balanced. But how do you sort of consider all of those things in that emotional intelligence model when the stressors from outside and maybe in the workplace continue to increase? And how do we sort of combat that?
I will say the same thing. The most important factor throughout this process is expression. If you can express, your stress levels will go down despite any complexity. And I have been in some of the most intense situations, and it was only through expression that I made it through. So just, an expression, the key to expression is this: if you are, for instance, you don't get a promotion at work, or you're overworked and you're really mad at your manager for not considering your needs, and you're really mad. So you go out and you're walking your dog and it doesn't sit on the leash, and you give it to the dog. The anger or the hurt from the work will not release if you get angry at your dog. If you want to release the feeling, you have to connect with the hurt from work. You have to connect and then express. If you don't, if you put it or project it onto something else, you won't release, and the stress will only continue. So the key factor is to connect with what really is. And I'll probably send along as well this emotional wheel, and it has all the array of emotions. So if you can't figure it out, you can look at the wheel and go, oh, it's that. Yeah, really, really grieving now, or I'm really sad about that. Acknowledge it, and then just talk to somebody or write it down for yourself. And or if you feel inclined, you can express it through music. Play, if you're a musician, you just want to play it out, but you have to connect to it, what you're actually playing for. And that expression, or draw something. You can draw, you don't have to be an artist, just take a red pen and you scratch it all over the page, but you're feeling it. That will keep your stress levels down throughout the whole process. The biggest problem is not the external things, it's how you relate to the internal feelings that you're not releasing.
Thank you, Martin.
Yeah.
So Brian put a comment in the chat just stating that connecting with work is sometimes impossible or difficult in a toxic environment where managers and leaders fear reprisal from their employers, especially in times of major organizational restructuring, right? And we're seeing that right now with Alberta Health Services and all of the current changes, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I come from the hospitality industry, so hotels and with the convention center as well. These environments are very difficult to deal with in an emotional, intelligent way. There is no balance there. You have to find it for yourself. I mean, most of these organizations tend to handle this by putting the information about emotional intelligence on their healthcare package. That is not going to do it. The only thing that works on a corporate level is when the manager takes responsibility for their employee and expresses directly.
Thank you very, very much for the presentation. There's been
You're
lots of
very
thank yous in the chat. I don't know if you're watching that or not, but lots of appreciation for the presentation. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate your time and allowing me to share my information about it.